Welcome to Organizational Behavior. I'm your online instructor, Diana Block. And this quarter, this is the this is the winter of 2015 quarter. And this quarter, we're going to study organizational behavior. And it is exactly what it sounds like. We're going to study behavior in organizations. So, an organization is a set of individuals that are working together on some kind of continuous basis towards some common goals. So, an organization is going to be all of the places where we work. The school is an organization, your church. We're, of course, focusing on business, but any group of people that are working together in some kind of coordinated, continuous basis is an organization. And since organizations are made up of people, people behave in different ways. And we're going to study these behaviors and how those behaviors relate to the efficiency of the organization. So, as you get into chapters 1, this is going to give you an introduction basically to the study of organizational behavior and talk to you about some of the basic concepts related to it. So, it's going to explain systems theory. And so, a system in any industry is a set of elements that combine together to form a complex whole. So we have different types of systems, and an organization, of course, is a system. An organization takes inputs and turns them into outputs. They take raw materials, they take labor, they take innovation, intelligence, all sorts of input from their employees and their environment, and they transform that into some kind of output, which is the product or service that that business generates. And within those systems, we have different types of systems that you're going to read about. You could be a part of an open system. An open system is one that's going to easily absorb inputs from its environment. So information is able to flow into the system freely. And this generally means they have impermeable boundaries. Permeable boundaries. Permeable boundaries allow that information to flow in and out of the organization. And or you could have a closed system that does not absorb inputs, that has the impermeable boundaries, where information is very closed off and tightly kept. Information is not shared as much. And you maybe can think of some organizations that may fit into one of those categories. In chapter 1, you're also going to read about things like re-engineering. And this is a situation in which you're working on the design of the organization so that you can improve the performance of it. Now, you might be working on improving costs, quality, service, or the speed at which you provide your product or service. But engineering means you're just going to kind of redesign the processes to try to improve on your outputs. And this is done through organizational learning. As we're a part of organizations and we learn how they work and we absorb the information that's available to us within that organization, as individuals, we acquire additional knowledge, and then we also embed additional knowledge into the organization that comes from our own experiences and knowledge. So that's organizational learning. And you're also going to learn about networked organizations, which a lot of us are a part of. And a networked organization is where you have companies that may have different designs and separate environments, but they're organized through one core holding company. So, for example, Globe Business School might have different types of schools underneath that same umbrella. And so they work together, they're linked together, but each may have a different format or a different structural design. We're going to talk about structural design more as we go along. Um, in chapter 1, you're also going to read about primary and secondary labor markets. And each of you can determine where you fit into that. The primary labor market is the labor in which you find professional, managerial, and other white collar jobs. Many students that are in college right now is because they want to move into or move up further in the primary labor market. So this is those professional white collar jobs. The secondary labor market, though, is those that are considered labor hourly, non-management positions. So those are positions, and a lot of times the secondary labor market jobs don't offer the benefits and security of a primary labor market job. And so you're going to learn lots of concepts about career paths and patterns. You're going to study steady state and spiral careers, transitory careers, lots of information about the different paths that a particular career can take. And that is all in chapter one. Now, at the end of chapter one, there is a case that is part of your homework assignment or your individual assignment for this week. And it's about the company Netflix. It's on page 21 of your textbook. And so there's a short article there. And then at the end of the article, there are some questions that you are to answer. Now, the thing with this class is the questions are asking you to relate the concepts from the chapter to what you've read in the article, not to necessarily just repeat what's in the article. You want to answer the questions by going through the chapter and see what concepts or theories or terminology from the chapter applies to that article. So the first question here is, what characteristics of a modern organization does Netflix exemplify? So when you get ready to answer that question, you're going to go through chapter one and see which characteristics that you believe apply to Netflix. Open system, permeable boundaries, re-engineering, impermeable boundaries. We're going to use the concepts and terminology from the chapter to answer that question. So when it's asking you to describe what type of organization it is, it's not asking you to say that they sell DVD, they rent DVDs. We know that. We're talking about what type of organization as far as the types and concepts that are explained in chapter one. So you're going to use some terminology from chapter one to explain what type of organization it is, not to just state what they do, which is rent DVDs. So, hopefully that's clear. Let's move on and talk about a little bit of chapter two. This is a great chapter. It talks about personality. And of course, within an organization, you've got people, so you've definitely got personalities. So, you're going to learn about several concepts related to the study of personality. A really important one is locus of control. And this is the extent to which people believe they can control the events that affect them. So, those who have a high locus of control believe that they have control over their own lives, their own actions, and that the things that they do determines their lot in life. Someone with a low locus of control feels like much of what happens around them they have no choice about, and they can't control the things that happen um, in their lives. And that can lead to different types of behavior depending on how much control you feel you have on the world around you. Is going to affect your personality and how you behave towards other people. You're also going to study this big five personality profile in chapter one. And the big five profile looks at five different characteristics, or yeah, five different characteristics of personality. And it's going to identify your persuasion on each of those five. Um, so they call it poles. You're going to see which pole you're at. So on each of the five characteristics, you could be very strong or borderline in that particular aspect of personality. So this a big five is actually going to again relate to your homework a great deal. You also read about the Myers-Briggs test, which is used in a lot of organizations, and you're going to learn a lot of terminology like practical intelligence. Now, I want to, while I still have another minute, I want to look at the homework assignment that's related to chapter two. And in chapter two, they ask you to read this article on page 52 of the textbook, and it's about the rebel billionaire Richard Branson. So if you haven't heard of him, there's a nice article there on page 52 and 53, and you'll learn all about him. So at the end of the article, again, there's some questions, and you're going to answer those questions using the terminology and information, the theories in chapter two. So you're going to use specific terminology and concepts from chapter 2 to answer those questions. The first question being, will describe Richard Branson's personality using the Big Five profile. So you are actually going to go back to the Big Five profile that is on chapter 39, and you'll see the 5 different aspects of personality listed there. And based on what you've read about him in the article, you're going to determine where you believe he falls for each of the 5 personality characteristics based on the Big Five personality profile. And then you've got a couple of other questions to answer there. So keep in mind in this course, every week, the articles you're going to read and the questions you're going to answer, your goal is to take the concepts and terminology and theories from the chapters you've just read and apply those specifically to the articles that you are answering questions for in your homework. So I will leave you to that. I look forward to talking with you in the discussion area this week. If you have any questions, my information is posted in the instructor area. You can reach me by email, Blackboard IM, or telephone. Have a great week.